We have more on creative disagreements over the booking of the Bloodline, and a former AEW champion has teased a retirement from wrestling. But first, an AEW wrestler has officially left the company. In December 2022, Swerve Strickland would introduce his new faction, the Mogul Affiliates, which consisted of former NXT developmental talent Parker Boudreaux, as well as the heavily tattooed Trench, a former pro baseball player. Yesterday, All Elite Wrestling would update the roster page on their website with a fresh new look, with some fans noticing that a particular name was missing from the list, that being Trench. This would then lead to online speculation that he'd been let go from the company, something we now have an update on via PW Insider. The report notes that Trench, real name Grandin Gertzman, has departed the company after his AEW contract recently expired, this 6 months after making his All Elite debut. What the future holds for his tag partner Parker remains to be seen, although he is now listed as a member of the Mogul Embassy faction on the new roster page, which is a merger of the Mogul Affiliates, which he was a part of, and the Embassy, a merger that took place after both Trench and Boudreaux were out with injuries, with him yet to appear under the new name. And before we get into our next story, be sure to subscribe to WrestlePlanet with notifications turned on, and why not drop a like on the video to help give the channel a kick into the YouTube algorithm, that is if you enjoy the content. And with that said, let's get into the rest of today's news. And next, we have the latest on the future of John Cena following his recent WWE return. The leader of the C Nation, which shocked the London crowd at Money in the Bank this past weekend, this when he showed up unannounced, with there being no prior leaks ahead of the appearance. During his promo with Grayson Waller, Cena would then tease the possibility of a future WrestleMania in England, something we also have an update on coming from Fightful Select. But before we get there, let's touch on the Cena surprise appearance, as the Fightful report notes that almost no one backstage knew that he would be on the show, and it was a case of WWE keeping it a secret that was close to their vest. WWE higher-ups would note to Fightful, however, that there is currently no more John Cena appearances planned on the schedule, and that he didn't have any upcoming programs. It is said that things could change if his schedule frees up, and that WWE were very happy with how things went for his appearance. As for a possible WrestleMania in London or another UK city, it has been confirmed by WWE that next year's Mania is set for Philadelphia, and that WWE is in the latter stages of finalizing the 2025 location, with Fightful hearing that this will be in the United States. This means that the earliest Mania that could be held in the UK is 2026, that is unless there is a drastic change. Fightful would also reveal that a recent survey was sent out to WWE fans asking about what cities in the UK would be most convenient for a hypothetical Royal Rumble or SummerSlam, with London, Birmingham, Manchester and Glasgow all making up the list of options. And speaking of SummerSlam, we have an update on the potential card for this year's SummerSlam event. SummerSlam 2023 is set for Detroit, Michigan on August 5th, a show that will seemingly be headlined by a continuation of the saga involving the Bloodline. According to a recent report from Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio, 7 matches are currently in the company's plans, and it reads as follows. Roman Reigns will be defending the undisputed Universal Championship against Jey Uso. Cody Rhodes will take on Brock Lesnar in a third encounter between the two. Trish Stratus takes on longtime rival Becky Lynch. Asuka, Charlotte Flair and Bianca Belair all fight for the WWE Women's Championship. Gunther will take on Drew McIntyre for the Intercontinental Championship, this after the latter's recent return at Money in the Bank. And Ronda Rousey will battle Shayna Baszler, this after their split at Money in the Bank. On top of this, Meltzer would add that social media megastar Logan Paul is set for an in-ring showcase, although his opponent is currently unknown. It's easy to see how many of these rivalries will unfold over the coming weeks, with there being plenty of seeds planted for WWE to head in this direction. And next, a major AEW star has been announced for a huge international show. In September, some of wrestling's biggest names will descend upon Jerusalem, Israel, for the nation's first major wrestling show in almost 30 years, with AEW loaning them one of their top names for the night. House of Wrestling would break the news in an exclusive report, which included an official press release from a new wrestling company going by the name of Global Pro Wrestling Summit. The announcement would include a list of various big names that are set to appear, including AEW Sting, who is listed as an ambassador, as well as Rob Van Dam, El Hijo del Vikingo, Rikishi, and more. Interestingly, there have been reports of free agent Goldberg being in talks to appear at a show in Israel. This is part of a wider retirement tour, although as of this recording, he is yet to be confirmed. What is also interesting is that AEW are involved in the show in some manner, with them lending Sting for the night, and if Goldberg eventually does get announced, could this mean he gets involved in AEW too? And could that be why he's yet to be announced pending an AEW debut? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And next up, many in WWE were unsure about a recent finish involving the Bloodline. This past weekend at Money in the Bank, Jimmy and Jey Uso would take on Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa in the match billed as the Bloodline Civil War, this in front of an extremely hot London crowd inside the O2 Arena. The close of the bout would see the reigning undisputed WWE Universal Champion get pinned by his cousin Jey, with this being the first time the Tribal Chief had been pinned in 3.5 years. With this last occurring all the way back in December 2019. In the days leading up to the show, a report would emerge from WrestleVotes that claimed WWE's creative team was split on how the match should end, with there being two very drastic finishes in play. Well, we now have an update on what this disagreement may have been, as according to a new report from WrestleVotes, the issue revolved around the idea of Roman Reigns being pinned prior to losing his undisputed title, and the report notes, there was a feeling of trepidation from a high-ranking creative member in crafting the finish for this past Saturday's Bloodline match. A strong argument that Reigns shouldn't be pinned prior to losing the title was present throughout the process. With that said, Roman would end up taking the fall to bring the event to a close, likely now elevating Jey Uso into the undisputed Universal title picture heading into August's SummerSlam event in Detroit. But do you think WWE made the right call in having the head of the table take the pin? Let me know in the comments down below. Next, a former AEW champion has teased a retirement from wrestling. At Double or Nothing 2023, Chris Statlander would make a triumphant return from injury, with her being the one to topple the then AEW TBS champion Jade Cargill, who was on an undefeated streak of 60-0 at the time. Since that May pay-per-view, Cargill hasn't been seen on television, with her seemingly taking a break from wrestling following a long reign as champion of TBS. Well, that's at least what many assumed, although going by a recent tweet, she may be gone from the business longer than we thought. Taking to Twitter last night, Cargill would share images of herself on the red carpet at the Hollywood Unlocked Impact Awards with a caption that caught the eye of fans, and she wrote, "Outside of the wrestling bubble is nice, I might stay." Whilst it's unclear how serious this claim is, it could be a case that Jade is healing it up online to draw heat before a return at some stage in the near future, although I guess only time will tell. It's worth noting that as of now, she is still listed on the roster page on the AEW website. And before you go, make sure you check out every video game return in AEW Fight Forever.